Well, hey, Good Life family, it's Forrest here coming to you guys for today's 128 devotional. And I just want to look at our Good Life journal for today. And it's a topic that has sometimes happened on 128. Not something that I necessarily would, want to be sharing as far as at the top of my mind. But this is what the Good Life journal has for us today. And I think it's just an important discipline, again, that I would encourage is as we're reading through Scripture, it forces us to get the whole context of Scripture, maybe explore some things that we wouldn't have necessarily dove into otherwise. So today, we are looking at the Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 5, and he's talking about this issue, and he's using the word judging. And essentially what he's discussing is how do we handle judging outsiders versus judging people within the church. And I know that the word judgment has a lot of negative connotation, and certainly rightfully so. It probably is deserving of some of the negative connotation, but I don't think the Apostle Paul is saying hey, here's free license to go judging people. Instead, what he's saying is an encouragement to the Christians that, hey, the world is gonna act like the world. You shouldn't expect the world to act like Christians. However, because you are a Christian, you should act like a Christian. You should act like somebody following Jesus. So I'm gonna read the words of Paul, and then let's just look at it together really quick. So Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 9, he says, I wrote to you in my letter not to associate with sexually immoral people. Now he clarifies. He says, not at all meaning the sexually immoral of this world, or the greedy, the swindlers, the idolaters, since then you would need to go out of the world. So quick pause. In Paul's mind, he's calling the church to live in a certain moral standing, to live as people filled with the Spirit, following after Jesus. However, he clarifies that does not mean that we should be removed from the world. We don't put that yoke upon people who are of the world. And then he finishes this. He says in verse 12, for what have I to do with judging outsiders? Is it not those inside the church whom you are to judge? God judges those outside. Purge the evil person from among you. Some harsh words, some strong words. And I want to leave you just with this. I experienced this in my life. Actually, this past Sunday, I was hanging out with a guy that I'm friends with here in town, and he is not a believer. And we were having a conversation, and he brought up a topic and wanted to know my opinion on it. And it was a topic about something that was pretty morally questionable, to say the least. I'm not going to go into the details of it, but he wanted to know my opinion. And what I shared with him was essentially, hey, here's what I believe, but I don't have the expectation of you because you're not following Jesus. I don't expect you to live like somebody who follows Jesus. And I was able to share with him this, and this is what I would share with you as well as a church family, that it is not our job as Christians to be holding the world accountable for their sins and their wrongdoings. I believe that the best thing we can do instead is to be in the world and introduce them to Jesus, and trust that the same Jesus that radically saved you and I is the same Jesus that can radically save them. Here's the deal. It's not about just changing morality. It's not about changing behavior modification. That's not the gospel. The gospel is that we all desperately need Jesus. So I got to share with this guy that, hey, ultimately, what I'm concerned with is not some checklist or to-do list that I want you to do. I want you to meet Jesus. I want you to study and encounter Jesus. And as somebody who follows him, I'm trying to follow after him. If you're not following him, I don't expect you to live like you do. And I would encourage us with that, church family. There's so many people in our life that it's so hard because we see them do stupid things and they do morally questionable things, but it's not our job to fix their morality or fix their behavior. Our job is to point them to Jesus, pray for them, and know that only he is the one who can actually change and transform a heart. And I would say for us as believers within the church, let's live in holiness and let's live in pursuing Jesus. Easier said than done. Tough passage, but hey, I hope that encourages you today. I think ultimately it all comes down to let's follow after Christ.